Hi, I'm Kate, also known as the Daily Tarot Girl, and welcome to my Tarot Card Meanings Deep Dive series. Today we're diving into the Sun, and the Sun is overwhelmingly the most positive, optimistic, happy, joyful card in the entire tarot deck. I always get excited when I see the Sun come up in a reading. It always has a really positive and optimistic meaning. So we're going to start off by diving into some keywords and then the symbols. I'm going to be giving you journaling questions along the way. You might want to have your pen and notebook handy. I'll also post the journaling questions below this video in the little description box, or maybe as a comment. And if you want to see the written version of this video with all the journaling questions and everything, I'm going to post a link to my blog, the blog post version of this video. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I upload these videos, I want to say once a week, but sometimes I skip a week, but I try to do it once a week. Okay, so let's dive into the Sun. Now, the image that you're going to see on your screen is from the Universal Waite Tarot. And some keywords for this card. The Sun represents joy, positivity, happiness, optimism. It represents this outgoing, kind of extroverted, radiant energy. It's energetic, it's playful, it's kind of innocent and childlike, and it also represents expansion. So let's look at the symbols on this card, and I want to start with the symbol of the Sun itself. This is kind of the main symbol on this card. I want you to think about how the Sun behaves. The Sun is this big, giant ball of fiery energy, and it radiates its light and warmth and heat and energy outwards. Kind of opposite to the Moon when you think about it. The Moon represents sort of like yin-like energy kind of going inward. And if you think about how the Moon acts, the Moon doesn't actually generate its own light. It reflects the light of the Sun, and it has phases, different cycles. Whereas the Sun doesn't really have cycles. The Sun is always just just burning full tilt. And the Sun is like the yang energy. It's energy directed outward. It's like radiant energy, and it's very, very intense. It represents the daytime and warmth and life and all that good stuff. Now, the second symbol I want to draw your attention to is of the child naked on a white horse with their arms outstretched wide. So the child represents innocence and playfulness, and that posture of the arms open wide represents being open to life and saying yes to life. The sunflowers represent kind of the earthly representation of the Sun. And I want to mention here, I did a little research for this video. So a couple books that I found helpful was 78 Degrees of Wisdom by Rachel Pollack, and The Tarot, History, Symbolism, and Divination by Robert M. Place. These are both really good books that talk about all the different symbols on the cards. Let's talk about the brick wall. So the brick wall kind of in the background of this card can represent old limitations that you've managed to break free from. And the red flag that the child is holding is a victory flag. So it's like you've been victorious, you've broken free from different limitations, you're breaking out into the sun, you know, you've gotten through the trials and tribulations of some of the other major arcana cards like the Moon, the Tower, the Devil, all of those tricky cards, and now you're in the Sun and you're celebrating. Let's see. Okay, so those are all the symbols I want to talk about for now. Now, every tarot card has a light side and a dark side to it, and I think it's easy to see what the bright side of the Sun is. You know, this is a playful and optimistic card. It seems to have this message like, all will be well, everything is working out, everything is great. The dark side of the Sun is more interesting. So I want you to think about what would happen if the sun were to just burn all the time. You know, if we didn't have the moon, if we didn't have nighttime, if it was just sunlight 24 hours a day, you know, we would die. We wouldn't be able to survive. We can't survive without the sun, but we also can't survive if the sun is just burning on us, 24/7. So there needs to be that balance between night and day, yin yang, sunlight, moonlight. So the dark side of the sun can come up as feeling pressure to always be on and up. So if you feel like you always have to be in action mode, you always have to be doing something, you always have to be optimistic and cheerful and happy, that can be the dark side of the sun. And it also can represent sort of feeling burnt out, like there's too much extroversion, you're behaving too much from that place of extroversion and you're burning yourself out. And just think about what happens if we spend too long in the sun. You know, a little bit of sunlight is energizing. We feel alive and wonderful, but too much sun and we get a sunburn. It can be quite dangerous. So the dark side of the sun is really about imbalance. You know, too much of that yang sun radiant energy can be exhausting. So we're going to dive into 3 areas of the sun. The first area that I want to explore is joy and optimism. So the sun is all about feeling joyful, being optimistic, looking on the bright side, saying yes to life, being open to life, greeting life with your arms wide open and really looking on the bright side. It's all about like finally reaching that place in your life where some of the burdens start to evaporate and you feel this sense of genuine joy and excitement about life. It's like those days where, like I have some days where I'll wake up and I'll just feel excited about the day for no real reason. Like I'll just feel optimistic and hopeful and just really up and radiant. And other days I might feel the opposite. But what's interesting is sometimes there's not really a reason that I can find for either one. For why I feel so joyful and sun-like, and other times why I feel, melancholy. So some journaling questions to consider here. I want you to think of a time when you felt really optimistic and positive and excited about life. And this might have been yesterday or last week, or maybe it was a few years ago, but a time in your life where you really felt this positivity and optimism. And the other question is, what helps you feel this way? What helps you get into sun mode? What helps you feel energized and expansive and optimistic? And what stops you from being this way? What gets in the way of you going into sun mode? The second area that I want to explore with you is the radiant, expansive energy of the sun. So the sun is about directing your energy outward and shining your light on the world. It's a really extroverted card that kind of runs counter to the more quiet, introverted cards like the High Priestess, the Hermit, the Moon. And I think that there's times in our life where we need to turn inward and we need to reflect and gather our energy. And then once we've done that, we need to direct that energy outward and move into a more extroverted mode of being where we share what we've learned with the world. The sun is a powerful symbol of that radiant, expansive, kind of yang-like energy in the world. And it encourages us to really open up and share a part of ourselves with the world. So a journaling question I have for you is, what does shining your light onto the world mean to you? And how do you do this in your own life? And if you're not doing it, what are some ways that you could? So what does shining your light onto the world mean to you? After we pass through the shadowy mystery of the moon and into the full light of the sun, epiphanies and those like aha moments start to happen. allowing us to break free of the things that kept us small and limited, which is represented by the stone wall in the background. So it's this feeling of like, yes, I did it. I got over the stone wall. I'm free. Now it's time to wave my red victory flag. Another journaling question I have for you is, what makes you feel expansive? What makes you want to expand outwards? What puts you in that outgoing mode? What makes you feel energized? When I asked myself this question, I realized that the environment that I'm in has a lot to do with this. So if I'm in an environment where I'm around people who are really open people, who are loving and creative and appreciative, I want to share myself with them. I want to expand and be more open. And I also find that if I'm really tired and dragged out, then I'm not gonna be very extroverted. I can't expand outwards. So if I haven't eaten for a while or I haven't had a good night's sleep, then that just really shuts me down. So if I take care of myself and take care of those basic needs, I'm better able to radiate my energy outward. So the third area of the sun that I want to talk about is playfulness and innocence. So the sun invites us to be playful and to not take life so seriously. It encourages us to get in touch with our inner child and to be willing to look at life with fresh eyes and to be willing to laugh and to play and to celebrate. This playfulness, this joyfulness and innocence is actually available to everyone, regardless of what you've been through. And I think it's really interesting and it's really telling that the sun comes after some of those like really tough cards, like the devil, the tower, even like the moon is a tricky card. And I think that's really interesting that the sun comes after those really challenging cards. I want to compare the sun to the Fool for a second, because the Fool is kind of similar to the sun in that it also represents kind of innocence and a spirit of optimism. But the Fool's optimism, I think, comes from being inexperienced, whereas the sun has been through all these other stages of the major arcana, and the innocence and the joyfulness is more earned. And it's almost like that optimism, that playfulness, that innocence comes as a result of having been through all these different trials and tribulations. So yeah, I just want to kind of reiterate that childlike playfulness and joyfulness and that innocence is available to all of us, no matter what, no matter where we are in life or what we've been through. There's a part of us that we can still connect to that is like that. It might be tricky to connect with that part of yourself, but it's available to everyone. So a couple of journaling questions I have for you. What does it mean to you to be playful? How can you cultivate more playfulness in your life? What is your relationship with your inner child like? This is an interesting one to consider. And I know for myself, I've done various meditations and exercises where I connect with my inner child. And I'm always worried that my inner child will mess things up. Like there's something messy and unpredictable about my inner child that I don't always like. So I think it's important to acknowledge, what's your relationship with that childlike part of yourself like? And the other question I want to talk about, what does it mean to be playful? Like, how can you cultivate more playfulness in your life? I find that whenever I'm doing anything with paint or arts and crafts or anything creative, I find it really easy to be playful. And a really fun exercise to try is to go outside for a walk and look at everything with fresh eyes, as if you don't know what things are. Pretend you're just an alien, you've dropped down on planet Earth, you don't know what anything is, and you're just walking and observing and exploring. Because I think our instant kind of default instinct when we do this is we want to name things, we want to categorize things. We want to be like, oh, there's a plant and it's this type of plant and blah, 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 blah. But try not doing that. Just try seeing things without categorizing things, without naming things, just observing and see what happens. So the wisdom of the sun is that the sun tells us that now is the time to let our inner light shine outwards. Now is the time to really tap into our extroverted side and share a part of ourselves with the world and with those around us. Regardless of the darkness that we may have experienced in the past, the bright, joyful innocence of the sun is always within us, waiting for the right time to be freed and to burst forward. So I want to close this video with a question for you. And I really, if you feel like sharing, I'd love to hear your answer to this question. How can you cultivate more playfulness in your day-to-day life? I know for myself, I think if I were to get back into painting and crafting, that's one way I could bring more playfulness into my life. So I'm going to make a real concerted effort to do that this summer. But I'd love to hear from you. How can you cultivate more playfulness in your life? So that is the sun. I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you've had fun, and I hope you learned a lot about the sun. And next up we have, I think it's judgment next. And I'm not going to be doing a video next week, so it'll be the week after, but I look forward to doing that. And again, if you want to see the written version of this video, I'm going to put the link to my blog post below this. And yeah, let me know what you think. Okay, thanks for watching. See you next time.